Welcome, Winiacs, Wisdom Wanderers. I am Matt Kane, and I am joined by one of my great friends, member of the Kane Action Team, and a wise sage in and of his own right, Mr. Keith Collins. Keith, how are you, my friend?
I am very good, Matt. How are you, man?
I wish we didn't have these technical difficulties. We were supposed to start an hour ago, but life happens. So I'm going to be drinking, I think, a little more than
No more
you.
wine today, huh?
Are you drinking anything, my friend?
uh, Not at the moment.
Okay. You don't have to. No peer pressure. I
Doctor
just
orders.
you're good. I just need something. But before we begin, um, thanks guys for checking us out. You can find us all over social media, Kane Action Team. Go to wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that kind of stuff. Leave a rating, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Sorry, I got hair everywhere. I decided to have my hair down today for a change. Um, but Keith is a really good friend of mine, and he's a fellow filmmaker. And I can't wait to talk to you, buddy, and really glean some great wisdom from you. So, first part of our show is we're gonna just talk about the wine for a minute until I can get a wine sponsor, and then I'll talk about wine all day. But
Right?
anyways, let's talk about what I got here.
What
And
you
it being the Christmas season and being in the middle of a pandemic, we'll just say money's a little tight. So I didn't splurge for the $100 bottle of wine. I got only the finest $8 bottle of Liberty Creek here, baby.
got?
You've got a Cabernet, and here's a little bit about Liberty Creek. At Liberty Creek, we craft our wines upholding the ideals of a bygone time. For $8, I'm sure they do. A time when traditions were esteemed and principles were hard won. Our long tradition of winemaking is rooted in the rich soils of California, and every bottle of Liberty Creek rings faithful to the principle we hold true that quality wines, even if it is $8, should be accessible for all. And at $8, it is accessible for all. Our Cabernet is boldly rich with layers of dark red fruit and notes of cherry for a slightly sweet finish. Pairs perfectly with juicy cuts of steak, smoky pork chops, and marinated leg of lamb. And I know, Mr. Collins, you're a foodie. Do you make
Yeah,
you have finely juicy cuts of steak, smoky pork chops, and marinated leg of lamb?
I don't have any on me, but I'd love to cook one. Cook a steak, a nice ribeye.
So you're not vegetarian anymore, I take it.
Nah, I'm not. I'm not vegetarian. I'm slowly going back to vegetarian.
Slowly but sure. It seems like since I've known you, it's been kind of like this. Like you're on seasons of being vegetarian and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, we all have that. All right. If I just cut out chicken and yeah, like an occasional beef, like I'm vegetarian. I mean, honestly.
Right, right.
All right, so let's get a pour here. This is for all our ASMR fans out there.
Oh, here
All
we
right.
go.
All right.
All right.
Wow. All right, let's give a little bit of a taste here. Sniff the bounty.
Yep. How is it? How is it there? What we got?
Tastes like $8. No, it's not bad. Honestly, I'm not a wine snob. I'm not even going to begin to like think I know enough about wines. I just know, does it taste okay, and does it have booze in it? Like, does it have is it alcoholic? That's all that matters. So for $8, I'll cheers to that. All right, Keith, are you much of a wine fan?
I'm a social drinker. I don't really drink on my spare time.
Yeah. Do you have a particular favorite kind of wine?
Oddly enough, Japanese plum wine.
Ooh, I tell you, man, I am a fan of Japanese wine. Yes, I would agree with that. Plum wine, especially, is really good. I've really not met a wine I don't like. The only wine I'm not too big a fan of, like the dessert, too sweet dessert wines.
Mhm.
Like I had what is it called? Is it, what the hell is the name of it? Where they take frozen grapes and then they make wine out of it. It's Frozen wine? No, it's not. Oh, great. Everybody's in the comments. Oh, this idiot has a wine podcast and doesn't even know what. But anyways, I can't remember the name of it. I had it one time and I about puked because it was so sweet. It's really expensive, but they take frozen grapes and they make wine out of it. There you go. So it might be frozen wine. That doesn't sound right.
I don't know. I don't know.
I remember the name of it. Well, anyways, let's get to wisdom. So, first question on the docket, and again with this show, guys, we don't just go, we get into our discussions. I want to get into the deep anima, if you will, of a human being, meet behind the veil, and really have deep conversations about life. That's really what this show is about. I don't. It's not about who are you and what do you do? Like, yeah, we can talk more about that, but really, it's more like what makes a person tick. What are their fears? What do they love? What do they hate? What do they believe in? What does it mean to be human? So with that being said, and you can take this question however you want, my friend, who is Keith Collins?
True. Wow, that's a complex question.
Yeah. And by the way, listeners, I don't prep, as you can see, I don't prep the guests beforehand. I like getting the pure raw reactions. And like I said, take it however you want, but who is Keith Collins?
A father, a husband, a martial artist, filmmaker, a Christian, a friend, a brother. That probably sum up who I am, and in so many words.
Yeah, and good, because those are all things I want to talk about. So let's talk. How we met. We really met in the film scene, the film community. We worked on a movie. God, has it been 5 years ago? I want to say.
Yeah, dude. Maybe is it 5 years? It was 5 or 6.
It's been a minute. Yeah, I want to say. Yeah, I want to say it was about 5 years ago. Project E1337,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe you can. Can you still find that on Amazon Prime?
I think at the moment, not right now. Like it'll pop up, but you can't watch it, type of deal.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it'll resurface soon on YouTube. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll be out there somewhere. But yeah, Keith, we met on the set of that. Keith was the fight coordinator, and I this was like actually the first project I did in the Cleveland area, and we had a small fight scene, and I got my ass kicked in it, and Keith choreographed me and came up with a stellar fight scene. It's at a dance club, so that's where we first met, and then we kind of clicked ever since. But speaking of film, what is it? What is it about film that because I know you've pretty much been kind of a lifelong filmmaker, or at least a lifelong fan of film. What is it about film that attracted you to it?
I think when I was a kid, like like when you're a kid, the job that you want is in a sense not a realistic job. Like, people when they're a kid, they want to be a robot, or girls want to be princesses, or what I mean, stuff like that. Well, I wanted to be a ninja. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yep.
And you realize when you grow up you can't be a ninja. But from watching movies, I realized, hey, I could be a ninja in a movie. You know what I mean? And I think from there, like I had to be like 10, where I was like, I want to be in movies, because then I could be anything. I could be a scientist, I could be a cyborg, I could be a ninja, I could be a scientist, cyborg, ninja. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what it was that attracted me to movies. I realized that your limit is your imagination of what you could be. So that's where I my love for movies came in.
That's interesting. I've always kind of viewed movies too in kind of a similar vein, where they're like, when you make a film, it's like a portal to another world opens up,
Mm-hmm.
and you can be anything. You can be anything you want. And that's really, I would agree, that's really what attracted me to film as well. Is like, yeah, I could play, I could be this, I could be that, I can be anything I want, anything that basically is as far as your imagination goes. So yeah, and that's what's really awesome is, in life, in life, yeah, we have these moments of artistic beauty and symbolism, but
Mhm.
they're very rare. Whereas in film, that's what it's all about.
Right.
And I had this discussion, in the last week's episode, that film is like, to me, it's you get an insight in what it is to be human. Whether that is, a cyborg ninja, there's
Mhm.
there's still a human being that's beneath that facade. And I've been rewatching all the old Marvel, not the whole old. I've been rewatching all the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies of late, and despite all their superpowers and all that, like what really attracts me to them is their humanity and the fact that, like, yeah, this might be Captain America, and he might be a perfect super soldier, but he still feels, he's still lonely. He's still, when his lover passes away, you feel that.
Right.
Even though he's a you know genetically engineered superhero, in the
Right.
end, at deep inside, we're all the same. And that's
Mhm.
to me, that's what I love about film. Now, granted, we love the action, we're kind of bent towards that, but it also is part of the story, and that's why we have great action scenes to drive that story forward. But yeah, I'm with you, and that's what's really awesome about making film and art. And you've you have one feature film, correct, that you directed,
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
on another.
And I'm working on the other right now as we
Yeah.
speak.
Hey, I'll tell you, man. Like, eventually, I want to do my own feature. I'm working. I have a script that I'm working on, but like, that is when you're making a feature film, you are basically just uh, you just basically, the way I envision it is, you have a giant thing of water on your back, and you're just putting out little fires everywhere, and you're just controlling mass chaos. All these people, all their emotions, all their personality types. Tech, you got to mess with equipment when it fails, and
Yeah.
locations and budgets and all that. So it's. I don't think your average person understands quite the undertaking. You
Oh,
know,
it's
so maybe
definitely.
I'll give James Cameron a little bit of a pass for being such a douchebag that I hear about. But yeah, and so you also mentioned martial arts. So I want to talk about that. What is it about martial arts? And I know your father is a martial artist and he trained you. But if you want to just talk about, you know, what martial arts means to you at a
Um,
core level.
I at a core level, I would say martial arts are the reason that I push through things. Having to train in martial arts, and I mean from various martial arts, to even going into like wrestling and things like that, you eventually learn how to push forward when things are pushing down on you. And I think martial arts, you know what I mean, through training, um, it really helps you to be able to handle those things mentally. And the other part of martial arts that's you should know amazing is it's sort of like a brotherhood. Like if you all go through this hard process, you all understand each other. So it's this mutual respect when a person is usually a martial artist, when they meet another martial artist, it's like, okay, I know what you've been through. You know what I mean? And that's almost in any martial art. Like even when from wrestling, like I could walk into a grocery store and an old guy will be like, "You were a wrestler," and I'll be like, "What?" You know, like, "How do you know this?" He'd be like, "You look like one. Did you wrestle?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I wrestled." And he'd be like, "I knew it." You know, it's like from there he has this respect for you.
Yep.
You know, so because it's like they know the training, they know how hard, the things that you went through, to get to where you are right now. And I could say that like martial arts sort of helped you mentally, for the hardships that life throws at you,
Hmm.
because life throws it at you, and it throws it at you hard, and you have to cope. You know what I mean? And trust. I feel like if it wasn't for martial arts, it wasn't for faith, if it wasn't for how I was raised, I probably it'd be rough. You know what I'm saying? I mean, these times right now are rough. For a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on some great points there. Number one, of course, I'm biased. Vocationally, I make a living as a martial arts instructor. So yeah, I'll be biased. But I personally feel that if more people in this world had martial arts training, we would have less violence.
I could agree.
And, to your average layperson, they may say, whoa, 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 aren't you training people to fight? Well,
It's something about fighting where when you're fighting all the time, you don't want to fight.
right. And not only that, but you have a respect for it,
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
understand what you can do to another human being. Like,
Hmm.
I personally I would classify myself as one of the most least violent people I know. When I say I'm a lover, not a fighter, I really mean that. Now, I know that if shit hit the fan and I had to defend myself, I could take anybody out. Like, that's my view and my
You
philosophy.
do what you got to do. Yeah.
Especially if it's somebody I love, there's no question I flip that switch on and go into that mode. But if you understand martial arts, if you understand violence, you have a better appreciation, respect for it. And the people that really cause violent crimes in this world aren't martial artists. They're
No.
they're they're thugs, for lack of a better term, without a moral compass, without that sense of integrity. And that's what martial arts instills in you:
Right.
is respect, integrity, respect for everyone, no matter what. And you only use that, and that's the ethos. That's the first code of conduct in martial
Mhm.
arts. Is I only use this when I absolutely
Yeah,
have to.
absolutely.
Like in Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. So that's essentially what it is. Is we know what we can do, but really it's having that respect for our fellow man, and really you learn about yourself through martial arts, and you have more internal peace as a result, so that it won't manifest in violence. Um,
Absolutely.
and the point of like the brotherhood, yeah, it's and that's why when you meet somebody, especially that's into Japanese martial arts, you say, oh, it's that sign of respect that, yeah, like I know, it's unspoken, like it's you're vibing kind of on another level with another human being,
Mhm.
that, like, you both have gone through those battles, those those battles of yourself, and you've come through on the other side. And
Right.
until you've done it, until you've been through that, people don't understand that. I know that a lot of veterans will, when they come back from active duty and combat, that that sometimes they have a hard time adjusting. But when they meet somebody that has been through that, you don't need to say a word,
Right.
because you have that. It's just, it's that, like I said, it's that unspoken feeling that you have, that connection. That's probably a better word. That connection you have towards somebody else, because you guys have all kind of fought those similar battles. And to relate it back to film, I would even say that with film, like when you're on a film set with somebody for X amount of weeks,
Yeah,
and days, that, like, you really build a bond with
yeah, you
somebody,
do.
and people don't understand.
Yeah, it becomes another extension of your family.
It
You
becomes
know.
another family. And yeah, you have your obviously your immediate family, but then you have your martial arts family, you have your film family, and all these circles of connection. And
Yeah.
you notice these bonds are forged. They're not forged in times of peace. They're forged kind of in times of, I don't like to say the term war, but like they're forged in times of battle, when you're coming up against, you know
Diversity.
difficult things in your life, and you have to rely on each other to persevere and get through it on the other side.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, martial arts. Do you train currently?
Not as much as I, used to, or like with somebody. I mean, I do some shadow boxing here. I try to keep sharp on, certain techniques, but I don't get to train as much as I did before the pandemic for sure.
And I tried to get you doing some Brazilian jiu-jitsu. We'll have to get on that a little bit more here.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Because
I
now,
want.
what's that?
I definitely want to get in on that, man.
Yeah. Now I'm doing virtual jiu-jitsu as well, so we can talk about that off after the show. But you mentioned COVID. So I know personally, for me, how much COVID has affected me,
Mhm.
in a positive. I mean, obviously there's negative, there's negatives,
Uh-huh.
but I know how much COVID has affected me in a positive manner, and has kind of helped me. You know, when you can't go outside as much, then you tend to go inside. And I've always, obviously, and having this show, and people that know me know I'm a very introspective person. So when COVID hit, part of me was like, hey, all right, I get a little more time for myself to kind of really, map out this internal terrain, if you will.
Right.
So I know the growth that has caused me. I know in lots of people in my life that they've taken COVID and flipped it on its head and turned it into a positive. So how has COVID affected you?
It really, like you said, gives you a lot of time to sit down and think, and give yourself direction. Whereas before, everything was like go, 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 go. Um, it gave me much needed, in a sense, break
Mm,
and that time to give him, insight to, what I would like to, do, where I would like to go. The things that, were on my mind that were heavy are now sort of lifted, you know what I'm saying? Because I had finally time to think about it instead of I was going, go, 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 go. And in this weird way, and I hope people don't hate me for it, but 2020 for me was probably my best year
mm,
with all of, the craziness going on. And that was simply because for me, it wasn't crazy, it was peaceful, you know.
yeah. Hmm.
And that's the crazy way to, say it. I mean, this has been a very peaceful year for me.
Yeah, what's interesting that you say that is I'm with you. Like financially, no, this has been the worst. This has probably been the worst year for me.
Right.
I had I still technically have a job, but I was laid off from a job that I love that it was my main source of income, and then I had a couple other smaller jobs
Yeah.
that I actually got laid off of as well. But aside from finances, I would
Mhm.
agree with you. I would actually say that 2020 has been the year of the most growth personally in my life.
Mhm.
I so in that regard, to me, 2020 was a gift. Now, and as if we're recording this, we only have like a week left of 2020, so we can get this thing the hell out of here. But
Right, right, right.
that being said, God, if I reflect back on where I was, March before everything happened, it's like, oh my God, it's like I don't almost don't even recognize myself because of the amount of growth that has occurred. There's lots of things in my life that I've gotten to clean up and that I've wanted to do, and I don't know if I would have had the time, honestly,
Yeah, yeah.
because of this.
I think that 2020, in 2019 and 2018, we get sucked into this hustle culture,
Mhm.
and you're hustling, and you're doing this, you're doing that, and you have to be busy, you have to be grinding, you have to be, and then like 2020 sort of made me be like, no, you don't. Like with death around the corner, I need to like slow down and do some things, you know what I mean, that are impactful to, not
Right,
only my life, but my family, my friends, you know what I'm saying? Because they could be gone while I was hustling,
right.
you know.
That's valid, and like there's definitely relationships in my life that I've gotten to really strengthen because of this, and you know, um, Elizabeth Kubler Ross said that there's no such thing as negativity in life. That and I kind of start and I adhere to this philosophy that everything that happens in your life is a gift and is to
Mhm.
help you grow, and whatever that is, it could be something that's terrible and heartbreaking. Um, that yeah, it sucks, and it definitely like this is something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. However, you
Mhm.
know that when you overcome that thing, think about all the growth that occurs. Think about something in your life that was like, broke your heart and teared you down, took you, to
Yeah.
the base level of you, and you had to rise up out of that, right? So if
Mhm.
you think about that, those kind of things, obviously you're not going around searching for like heartbreak. Oh, how can I? But when it happens, I know for me, part of me is like joy that yeah, we can use this as fuel, to grow as a vehicle to help me awaken and grow and become a better person.
Right.
So yeah, so 2020 to me, I viewed it through that lens of like, you know, um, how much it's helped me become just a better version of myself. So I think in that, and hopefully, like other people have done that. I know, it's tough with our digital age and seeing social media. You just so much negativity is just thrown at you,
Yeah, yeah,
And you can become overwhelmed. There's no doubt about it, because obviously we know that dirty laundry, sells. That's where that's where the ratings are. People like bitching and people like complaining. And one of my
right.
personal tenets and philosophies when it comes to social media is I don't engage in negativity. Whatever it is, I don't engage in it. I just don't have time for it. I value my time very much, and I know that if I engage in something negative, that I don't really think anything good could come from it. And you see these posts that people just keep going on and on and on, especially with this being an election year. God, how divided have people become because of things like social media? And
Yeah,
yeah,
which was supposed to be a thing to bring us together.
it should be.
But also at the same time, what we found out is we really don't want to know people. Like the, the
Yeah,
the more we found out who some people are, the more you're like, oh my gosh, you're a terrible person. Like
yeah, yeah.
um
That I will say that 2020 with COVID and with the election, it really exposed. It really
yeah,
shined a light in dark corners of people's
yeah,
humanity,
yeah.
and it kind of brought out the cockroaches, didn't it? Like all the people that were, whether they were racist, um, violent, homophobic, whatever, what have you, they were
Yeah,
more they were like galvanized to come to the surface and
yeah,
be
it was weird.
exposed for that. So in regard, 2020 has been like a spotlight on those kinds of people.
Hmm. No, I absolutely agree. It's been very interesting to see, people's philosophy on life and sort of see how they could care less about it, if it, and how selfish,
Yeah,
in a sense, we are, or at least half of us are as a nation.
and
Um,
right.
yeah, I mean, like, just empathy. You know, you didn't realize how far away from empathy we were until this situation.
Yep. Yep. I that's a great point. I have always said that empathy is the most important trait of a human being. Being able to feel and understand what another person is going through, especially somebody that doesn't look like you, doesn't think like you, that doesn't worship like you, love like you, what have you. That if you can understand what they're going through, that it opens your heart and builds a connection. Because even though we talked about division,
Mhm.
we as human beings are more alike than we are separate. Like
Yeah, yeah.
at the at
It's sort of like this. When you look at something like Marvel, like Thanos. In somebody's eyes, Thanos was a hero. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like Thanos, even Thanos thought he was a hero.
absolutely. Those are the
Yeah,
best villains, the ones
right,
that if they were doing wrong, they think they're doing right even though they are doing wrong. Their heart is in the right place. Just they go about it wrong.
right. And so when you think about that, there are people following Thanos that thought he was right. He had a whole army, half a galaxy following him, so they thought he was right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that is the part we running into. A lot of them, when you hear what they're saying, the end result of what they want is like, okay, but how they're getting there is terrible. It's a terrible means. Like the Thanos was like, if I snap my fingers and get rid of half the universe, I'll save resources. But he never said, hey, if I snap my fingers, I can actually bring more resources.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
I don't have to kill people. I can just boom, more resources and we'll be fine.
Yeah.
So
It's very interesting, but to understand what somebody is going through, I mean, you can't really fully ever understand, but you can on the flip side of that coin, you can, because we all go through the same stuff. We
right.
all hurt. We all feel lonely. We all feel scared. We all
And
have
it's usually the way we handle it.
yeah,
The way
yeah,
we handle
absolutely. So, um, you know, if we can come to understand, and because I guess what it's rooted in, Keith, is fear,
it. Mhm.
and it's rooted in, if you look different than me or think different than me, or you have a different political affiliation or come from a different walk of life, that people think that they're going to take away from you and who you are, and it's a threat to your identity. So that's where the fear is. That's where it gets originated, and
Mhm.
it's the fear of other, right? You're different than me. That's a threat, and that kind of goes back to I guess you could say our primal nature as, human beings way back when is that, there was something that was different than us, that was other. Well, automatic, oh, there's fear there. There's fear
Right.
inherent. But if we can come to understand another being and remove, by understanding them in a deeper level, we then remove that veil of fear, and you understand, hey, this person, they're just like me.
Right.
So I think that's where it starts. I think
Right.
if we all did that, if we all, instead of pointing fingers like this, we went like this, and like, what in myself can I do to change, to be a change in this world? If you want to bring forth change in the world, it starts right here. And
Yeah.
I
And I
know
think
personally, there's lots of stuff that I've had to do, prejudices and biases that I've had to overcome. I've had to look
yeah,
myself in the mirror. Nothing gets swept under the rug. You have to deal with all that shit that you don't want to see, all those dark corners in your life. You come to understand it, and then you can grow.
yeah, but I think that what you said is true, but I think it's so hard for a lot of people to do because you have to criticize yourself.
Mm,
And a lot of people don't want to do that. They want to just say that they're good, they're fine, and
yeah.
everything about them is great. And they don't want to look at, hey, you got some things that you need
Yep.
to work out. You know what I mean? You got
It
to,
takes, you're right, it takes a lot of accountability,
yeah.
and it takes somebody you have to have self-awareness and be introspective. If you
Mhm.
don't have those, if you can't reflect on yourself, you're absolutely right. Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
How can you? So
I,
yeah, it's about, you're right, it's about doing that
I
hard
think
work, but it's easier just to say no, and I don't even want to put in the effort.
it's that, and to a degree, there's some people who just don't care. They know they just don't care. They're just like one guy from the Matrix who wanted to be put back in the Matrix. He was like, I know the steak isn't real, but it tastes good. Put me back in. I don't care.
Absolutely. There's some, like I said, ignorance is bliss. There's something to be said for just not giving a shit and having the joy. Now, I'm not gonna lie. There's been days where I've thought like that, like, yeah, man, like I can't. But then, I understand that this is just who I am.
Mhm.
You know,
Yes.
and ultimately, you have to come to terms with who you are.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's we all need to do that at
Mhm.
some point in our life. The earlier the better.
Right. Absolutely.
Um, I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to get to some stuff that I really don't know anything about,
Okay.
that you would probably be more have more wisdom than I would. Let's talk about, because you are married with kids, so let's talk about marriage.
Uh-huh.
So how long have you been married? Oh, we have to think about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Think about
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
it. 18 years.
okay, 18 years. So what do you think? What's the key to having a marriage that goes 18 years?
Sheesh. Um, you know, that is such a hard question. I think that you have to be okay with change. Things are gonna change, things are gonna adapt. Um, things aren't always gonna be the same, and that you should always be true to who you are the whole time.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying like like if there's something bad about yourself, make the change. It's worth it. You know what I mean? Like, because you're 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 in a partnership. You know what I'm saying? Essentially, you're in a partnership, and really, you're growing and building together to create one person. So, there's certain things that might get on your nerves, but what if it doesn't get on your nerves with this person? Is it gonna eventually get on your nerves? Because you're giving them a pass because you love them.
Yeah,
But the love that you had when you first started is a different love years later.
right.
Man, it's a different love. So you 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 just it's just a lot of, like I said, growth and change. Is it's hard to really explain. Like, you know, when you get when you get here, it's just, you have ups and downs like all relationships. It's like being boyfriend and girlfriend, except you decided you're gonna stay together forever until somebody dies. And you have to not try to sound like mean, but it's sort of like you're making a decision of like who this person is, good and bad. I'll take that for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll take that the rest of my life
Yeah.
because I don't want to do, like there's certain things that you'll tolerate. And if you're looking at this person and you're like, I'll tolerate all of that, that's probably who you should marry because it makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is that change happens. Change is gonna come, and you need to adapt. You need to pay attention. You need to communicate your feelings and how you feel, and things of that nature, which doesn't seem like we're sort of taught to keep things in and handle things on our own, but sometimes you got to say something, man. You gotta say, hey, something's up. You know what I mean? I gotta get myself together. I need your help.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the other thing, just getting used to the idea of, you can have help. You can ask for help. That's what they're there for. You know what I mean? You're not by yourself anymore. That's the biggest thing. You're not by yourself anymore. If that's the thing that if you're looking for that mate, they you have to realize you're coming together as one. I think that's the biggest thing. You're coming together. Your team. Your team.
Yeah, it's interesting. Couple of things you said. Change. Bruce Lee said, to change what changes, the changeless state. So go with change, embrace change. If we didn't change and adapt as human beings, we'd still be picking, lice out of each other's back in a cave. But
Right.
yeah, so
Yep.
to evolve and grow is so important, especially the dynamics of a relationship will change,
Mhm.
and if you're committed to that, then you have to be able to change with it, even if somebody else changes as well. Um, so yeah, that I know can be tough, can be difficult for a lot of people. But you said that it's committing to something that's greater than yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there may be times that you think like, man, I don't know if I can do this, but when there's that commitment to something, you're going to do what it takes to stick it through, to stick
Yeah.
with it. And you mentioned help. That's interesting too, because being able to ask somebody for help. I know, especially as men, like, sure, we got it all, right? We're men.
Right.
We got
Right.
help. But it's what's interesting is, like, especially for me, I'm a very even though I'm a very outgoing and personable person, I'm very much independent. I like doing my thing and not being
Mhm.
told what to do. And also, and sometimes that bites me in the ass because I do have a difficult time uh, asking for help. Like, it would take things to be pretty
I
scary
think.
for me to actually be like, hey, I need help because I want to try and figure it out on my own. But when you're in a relationship like that, you mentioned communication. You have to be able to have that clear channel of communication that if that person needs something, you're always there for them, and vice versa. But
Right.
you also have to have some humility and check yourself and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I need help.
Yeah. And I think that we're conditioned. I mean, like you said, we're men. We're conditioned to try to handle everything on our own, and if we can't handle it, we are less of a man, and that's if there's an endless cycle of problems, that's one of the things we need to stop. It's like, look,
Yeah.
just get, what I'm saying? It saves you all the trouble in the
I hate that narrative that, like, if you ask for help, that's a sign of weakness.
world. Yeah,
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I would actually, on the flip side, say that's a sign of strength. That's a sign of having self awareness that, like, yeah, I need to do something
yeah,
about this. And I touched on this last episode with my guest Melissa. You can go back in the archives and check that out. We talked about how if men were more in touch with their emotions and were able to convey them, and were and societally, if we rewarded men for being more in touch with their emotions, that
Mhm.
there would be less violence in this world.
Yeah, well, that's because in society, in American society, the only emotion that men are allowed to have is anger. So if you're sad, you got to be angry. If you're, depressed, you got to be angry. You know what I mean? You got everything you have to display. You're allowed to display anger and rage for every emotion,
Yeah.
but you can't display the actual emotion. You know what I mean?
And well, it's interesting too, because if you look at it culturally, men aren't rewarded for showing like those kinds of emotions, the good emotions, right? The loving emotions. Think about it. We pride like achievement in getting success. What do you think culturally what we value more for men is it
Mhm.
getting that sale, that one, staying at work to get that sale, as
Mhm.
opposed to being at home with your kid, and reading them a story. Like, where is it from a priority standpoint? Obviously, we prioritize, getting that sale, getting that achievement, making
Yeah.
that money. But we don't
Business and money.
prioritize, emotional connection and emotional being able to emotionally, uh, being
Yeah,
able to being able to express yourself emotionally. We don't prioritize it. It's not that important.
exactly. Yeah, no, I agree.
So I
I,
think if more men and people in general, no doubt, but especially men, because of the cultural mores and the constructs, the concepts that we've created as a society because of that, you
mhm,
know, it's hampered a lot of the growth of men,
mhm,
especially because you know, we aren't rewarded for being, that emotionally available. And then
right.
it flips back on, speaking of relationships, women then have to deal with that at home. Women
Mhm,
have to deal with men that aren't able to express themselves. Here's the thing. It's going to manifest no matter what.
mhm,
But how is it going to manifest in a positive manner? And if men dealt with those emotions and were able, and if we culturally said, hey, you can express these and it's okay, I think, obviously, I believe there's a really strong correlation between that and having less trauma, less violence, less anxiety in our society.
yeah.
So, you mentioned you have kids. So, I know you have two daughters. How has raising kids? How has that changed you? What kind of growth has that caused you?
Having kids really tones you down.
Yeah. Again, this is a topic I know nothing about. Marriage, kids,
Yeah,
like this is what I
like
want to learn from you, man.
when you get kids, and then in my case, I got two daughters. Um, they if it wasn't for my daughters, I probably would have been way harder in terms of personality. But having daughters, made me tone down, be a little softer, you know what I mean? Uh, and become more, what's the word? Calm, in a sense, than I probably would have been if I had like sons, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. Um, I talk to them, we have multiple conversations, and I just want them to see me, their father, and sort of when they get that time to dating, they'll make that right choice. So it's like I try to provide the best example I can of a guy,
Right.
so that way they'll make the right decision, and not bring home somebody crazy.
Yeah. So you haven't had to kick anyone's ass yet with your martial arts? It's tried to.
No, like, been
Well,
pretty good.
I'm sure you're a wonderful guy and a wonderful father. So I'm sure that your daughters aren't too far off the block. So I'm sure that they have a good head on their shoulders because of you and your wife. So I don't think it's something you're gonna have to worry about. But it's there if you need it. Um, you did mention something about kids calming you down, and I think obviously this is from an outsider's perspective, but I could see how having kids could create a state of equanimity within yourself that I know for my mom is like a mini Zen master. It's amazing all the things she dealt with me and my brother especially. And I have an older sister as well, but she was kind of doing her own thing. But me and oh my god, I sent my brother to the hospital a couple times as a kid, and I don't know how we survived. I mean, this is one of the reasons I got into martial arts, to help focus me and center me and calm me down. But as a kid, I was an absolute hellion. I mean, I was a spaz. Like, it was unbelievable. I was, because I'm so physical that I was always practicing, WWF moves on my brother.
Right.
That's one of the reasons I sent him to the hospitals. I, basically body slammed him into a stair, and the corner of the stair hit his head and sliced it open.
Dang.
And like, a year later, I threw the seatbelt and it cut his head right next to it and sent him to the hospital again.
Yes.
So anyways, dealing with that, my mom is an absolute saint, and she's like a Zen master. There's been times where, I remember one time when I was a early teen, my mom and I, we came home, and my stepdad was on the floor like having a seizure, and I'm like freaking out like this, like, holy crap, what the hell is this? I'm like, ugh. And my mom was just so zen. She just came up like, honey, are you okay? And then immediately called 911. But it's because she dealt with my ass and my brother's ass for so many years that she was just, it's amazing. Nothing phases. My mom is like cool as a cucumber. Nothing really, phases her. And I think part of that is because of, having kids and just being that tolerance level,
Yeah,
being able to weather that storm. You can weather that storm, shit, nothing.
you develop this weird tolerance for things. You like I said, you mellow out real quick,
Yeah.
like you get put through, the ringer, really with kids. And once, they hit that part where they can, in a sense, take care of themselves, you're just so worn where you're like, oh, okay, all right. This is just how it is. Like, it really helps. Honestly, having kids helped me make movies. I mean, like, because you're on the set and one of the rules really, if people should keep this rule in all of life, whatever can go wrong will go wrong.
Yes. Yeah. Always have
And
contingency plans.
if you have that on your mind all the time, when something goes wrong, you're like, oh, it happened, rather than, oh my gosh, it happened. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And that's sort of, how it feels.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you mellow out. Like at first, it's like, oh, you're uptight, and then like time goes on and more things happen. You slowly, like, I sort of get now why grandparents are so chill.
Oh
You
God, yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I couldn't.
And with age comes wisdom.
Right.
That's with this kind of the theme of this show is
True.
that, like they've they've seen those battles, and
Yeah.
because like I said, from earlier, I view everything as life as, a vehicle to just make you more awake, make you wiser,
Mhm.
make you freer, and learn more about yourself. So yeah, I mean, hopefully when I'm, up there and you're up there, hopefully we'll be even wiser, than we are now,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
because we've seen some shit, and hopefully then we'll be like, floating around in our hover cars. And we'll be like, dude.
I don't know. I thought we were supposed to be hovering by now with like
Dude,
neon light jackets and
yeah, with Back to the Future, man. I thought we'd be having we'd be flying on these hoverboards everywhere, but
hollow glasses, just the
yeah,
whole man.
what's up with that, man? Like Blade Runner, it should be. Think about that.
Right.
All that technology.
Exactly.
Like, where are these androids at? These replicants and such.
Right.
Ah, man. Well, I kind of want to round third here and finish up with a couple more questions, and we'll get you out of here. Appreciate your patience, with all the technical difficulties and everything. But so we'll finish on two questions. The first one is, what do you, Keith Collins, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Retired.
That's a good one.
That's sort of funny because the reason I say that is if there's one thing I realized at like 25 is that everybody got to do whatever they want to do when they retired.
Yeah. That's something I've thought about is I don't think I'm ever going to retire. I don't even know. What does that mean?
But I feel like there's a certain way, like retired, like, Yitman's son, he's, trained people in Wing Chun all his life. He's like what 80 something,
Yeah.
and in his case, that's what he wants to do with his life. He's retired. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like he's teaching. That's retired. You know, and that's sort of what I want. I want to just do what I want to do when I want to do it. That's what I see retirement as. So
Gotcha.
if I'm teaching, people, martial arts, and I'm training people, and I'm making films, and I'm, doing something creative, making a video game, whatever, what have you, I'm retired. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So that's sort of what I want. That's what I want.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, and I think you're right. I think, it is more kind of a state, getting to that point of your life, more of, honestly, like more of a state of mind where you're there, and
Mhm.
there is no like pressure, that you have to go to do this job and do that, that
Mhm.
you can flow and be more one with life, and do what you want, and just stay creative, and express yourself. And I think, yeah, man, like hopefully we can get there. Hopefully financially, that's the key. Hopefully we have that freedom to be able to do that.
Right, right, exactly.
But yeah, but that's interesting. And I know personally for me, I love teaching. I love martial arts so much that I don't plan on ever like giving that up.
Right.
Teaching. I know when I was first doing martial arts, the Grand Master, if you will, he was on the mat and he was in his 90s.
Yeah. And that's to me a beautiful thing. Like
Absolutely.
that's a beautiful thing. Like when you see these old masters go out and these tournaments and they're throwing kicks as high, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Still doing a split or bench pressing. You know what I mean? Like you see that stuff, you're like, yo, that's what I want. That's
that's
what I
it.
want. You know what I
That's where
mean?
I want to be. I know I've seen this Tai Chi master in China, man. He just stands there and he literally picks up his leg like this. It's like that. He's like does a standing like split, and it's like, oh my, and he's like 90. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be able to still do that and stay active for the rest of your life, man, I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important that you start as early as you can. Obviously, you can't eliminate the effects of aging. That's impossible. But we
Yeah, absolutely. You
reduce
can't you
them.
can't stop aging, but you can definitely make it better.
Make it better, and
You can age gracefully.
you can age gracefully and decrease the mileage, because again, there's the biological age, and then there's the chronological age. You may be Keith Collins X amount of years, but how many miles are under that hood?
Right.
Right. And working out, staying in shape, doing martial arts, it keeps that, it's like changing your oil. It keeps everything lubricated, and
Keep it
the
moving.
engine
Keep
is
it moving.
strong. So,
Absolutely.
and I see you working out, man, posting some stuff on the social media, staying,
Yeah.
as long as I've known you, you've always been in good shape. So I don't think that's something you'll have to worry about. But what is, last question here? We'll finish
All
up
right.
with this. This is a question that's been tripping my guests, so hopefully you can handle it with some grace and some, regality and some wisdom. Uh, if you had to go back to like the 20-year-old Keith Collins, what would you say to him? What would be the number one piece of advice? And if this is like something that you're like your legacy, something you had to leave, to all the human beings of the entire galaxy, you had to say, boom, this right here, this is what life's all about. What's the number one piece of wisdom you would bestow upon us?
Invest in Amazon.
There you go. Back before, way back when, right?
If
20
I
years
if
ago.
I'd invested when I was 20, I would be in a
No,
much better
smart. That's a great answer.
place. But if I were to go back to my 20-year-old self, I would tell him, don't be scared.
Hmm.
Don't be scared. Because the reason it took me so long to do half of what I want to do is fear.
Yeah.
And if I would have done it sooner, I would have been probably in a different place today.
Hmm. That's beautiful, man. Yeah, it's interesting. Fear throttles everything in life. Um, you think about wanting to go ask your boss for a raise, right? Think about
Mhm.
the fear there, or asking a girl out. But what's interesting though too is, because in our minds, it's like we play that movie of like, well, here's what could happen if I do this.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is fear is like a muscle, man. And with relating it to martial arts, yeah, there's probably stuff in martial arts that you didn't want to do. It's like, oh my
Well,
god, I got to spar this dude.
yeah,
Like,
it's an
but
innate reaction.
when you
Fear is an
flex that
innate
muscle and you
reaction to
overcome that,
yeah.
that's where the growth happens. Um,
because it's that reaction to failure. Like
yeah,
you got to remember, there's moments in your life. Like I remember there's moments in my life where I didn't have fear and I did something and it hurt. You know what I mean? So
fear's useful. That's for sure.
after that, you're like, okay, you're more cautious on that next
Yeah,
step. You're more cautious on your thinking. And sometimes it makes you a little too cautious.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yep,
And once you get too cautious, then you start holding yourself back in life.
yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing that needs to be. I would stress to anybody that don't get that fear. That fear and it can come at you at any time. Like I was like so non-fearful, through my 20s, and then 30s came and something happened, and I just was like, I want to take these careful steps because I felt like I wasn't reaching my goals and I was careless.
Hmm.
And eventually it was like I had to relearn not being scared because of all the failure, you know.
Yeah. It's interesting. I agree with you. I think that every human being needs to have a, a better understanding of the role that fear plays in their life and have a better relationship with it. And, if we can have that understanding and cultivate the self awareness to understand that if we, yeah, fear is useful. And there's definitely, an
Yeah.
inherent, innate reason that we have it as human beings. However, it can paralyze you and,
Mm.
and freeze you and prevent you from doing anything, whether that is a self-defense thing or more
Yeah.
importantly, overall in life. And if we
Yeah.
have a better understanding of how to overcome those things and understand, like, yeah, actually, this wasn't so bad. When I did this, yeah, I mean, it wasn't as bad as I thought, but I had to put in, I
I
had to
think
put
I
in those
think
work.
too is also once again culturally ingrained that um failure is the end
Yeah.
instead of failure being the lesson. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like, when you fail, it's like, oh, okay, I should have did it that way. Let me try it another way. But what we've learned here is this false sense of perfectionism, where when you fail, your life is done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
And I agree. I think culturally that's horse shit. That failure there's a negative connotation to it. Like, dude, I've failed more than anybody. I'm not saying I love it, but it's interesting because I know the growth that comes
from
from
failure.
failing. That
Yeah,
okay, so I failed, but what did I learn? What did I learn?
right. What did I get out of it? What am I
What
learning from
message did I learn from
it?
this
Mhm.
experience, and how can I take that and grow and not make that same mistake again?
But I mean,
Because
like the biggest thing that with fear you need to realize is like that if you do fail, congratulations, you did something because most people didn't do anything
yep,
because they were scared. You know what I mean? Like you've done the number one thing that people won't do, and that's something.
yep, yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely. That's kind of a philosophy that I live my life by is like, yeah, I put myself out there and I'll do it. Yes, I'm gonna fall on my face. I'm gonna crash and burn, but at least I made that effort, right?
Right.
At least I saw, I charted a little more territory, um, instead of just staying inside and not seeing what the outside world is like.
Mhm.
You have to overcome that fear. It's gonna suck sometimes, but that's where the most growth occurs.
Yes.
Education through adversity. I think Walt Disney said, life begins outside your comfort zone. All those kind of cliches you want to say, but there's truth inherent in them. And it
Yeah.
all starts with understanding, um, that it's okay. It's okay to fail. And I think culturally, you're right, Keith, that we need to have a better conversation, a better understanding, and a better, ultimately, cultivate a better relationship with fear to understand that it's all right to fail. It's not the end of the world. It's just the beginning. And then take that, use it as fuel to then grow.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I love it, man. I think that's really awesome, and I think that's a valuable lesson for everyone is to not be scared.
Mhm.
That yeah, I mean I think there are a lot of things in life that are scary, but ultimately, man, when you cultivate courage and over and find a way through and cultivate, the strength to battle those, those demons, those fear demons, if you will, that you'll find the
Yep.
rewards are so sweet. Even if you don't achieve that thing that you wanted, there was still the lesson to be learned inside of that. So, man, this has been awesome, Keith. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day uh, to link up here and have a great conversation. I learned, man, and that's what it's all about. I appreciate it, dude. Like, that's what this show is about. I guess I'm very selfish because I want to talk to all these wonderful people, glean wisdom from them, you
Right.
know, and hoard it all. But no, to
Yeah.
give it back, because that's what it's about. Everybody that's watching it, or listening, hopefully, and I'm sure, especially with this episode, I'm sure everyone learned a few things. That's what it's all about.
I hope so. We're all students of life. So that's what I see.
Absolutely, dude. Life is the ultimate curriculum that we got to take, and
Right.
whether you want to take it or not, you have to.
Yep.
Like we didn't you didn't choose to be born, to get thrown in this world. It's like, here, play, have fun, now figure it out. Like, that's what's so fascinating about it. So hopefully today we got a couple blueprints, a couple a couple how-tos,
Couple good notes.
to help ease the journey.
Right. To help ease the journey.
Keith, where can people find you? Where can they check you out and all your stuff?
They can check me out on Facebook, Keith Collins the second, on was it Instagram? That's Kiko II. That's KEICOII. And I play video games a lot, so you can also find me on Twitch, and that's also Kiko II. That's KEICOII.
Good deal, my man. Good deal. That's something that I want to get in. I'm going to get into a little more. I might be streaming a couple games here and there when I get a chance.
Yeah.
It's lots of fun. And Keith, it's been a pleasure, and you're a great filmmaker, and people can check out all your films and all your works there. And hopefully in 2021, man, we can link up and do some more projects.
Yeah.
And, really kick it in gear, man. So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, cheers to you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for being a guest on the show, Wine and Wisdom.
All right.
We'll have to do it again. Next time we'll bring you on, and we'll talk about some different subjects and see how much wiser we've gotten.
Since the last one, yes.
All right, my dude. Well, to you, Keith, and to all the fans out there, everybody watching and listening. Hey, appreciate you guys. Have a safe and happy New Year's, and we'll see you next time. Appreciate you. Thanks.